Hello and welcome to our comparison between the Norwegian Prima and the MSC Virtuosa. We were fortunate enough to enjoy a cruise on both within a few months of each other. What we couldn't fail to notice was the similarities between the two ships, including them both being launched within a couple of years of each other, both adding a more glamorous style to mass market cruising, and both would also start their careers sailing from the port of Southampton. There were of course many differences as well, including their different approaches to buffets, complete opposite promenade style decks, and the organisation on board. But all of that simply got me thinking, Norwegian Prima or MSC Virtuosa? Which is the best? The best way to decide upon that is to break down each ship into the main areas that makes a difference to a cruiser's experience. And they are the onboard experience, what's included, the entertainment, your accommodation, and of course, the food and drink on board. We will rate each ship in those areas before deciding which is the better ship based on our own personal experience. So if that sounds of interest to you, why not give us a like and subscribe, and also we would love to hear your views on both ships in the comments below. My name is Darren, and this is our comparison between the Norwegian Prima and the MSC Virtuosa. There are lots of things that go into the onboard experience on a cruise ship, with some of it down to the ship itself, some down to the line you sail with, some down to the itinerary you choose, and of course some of it is down to the people you are cruising alongside. For the purposes of this comparison, we will try to focus much on the impact of the ships themselves, but to be fully transparent, we will state that our journey on the Norwegian Prima was a repositioning cruise between Southampton and Barcelona, with plenty of families on board, whilst our journey on the MSC Virtuosa was a cross-channel mini-cruise from Southampton to Belgium and France, with a more mixed crowd including lots of groups on hen and stag do's and family groups that were celebrating birthdays. The onboard experience on the Prima was the worst of any of our trips on NCL, and sadly by quite a long margin. The organisation was poor throughout, which included it taking well over an hour of queuing to leave the ship at a non-tender port, announcements from the cruise director only ever being made to sell you things rather than to inform you, and the curious incident of being charged twice for an excursion and then being told by the sadly tired and overworked staff it was not their problem. The layout of the ship is poor, including cruisers having to walk through a far too small buffet to and from the lift, and there is no flow to a lot of the decks, and even the entertainers in the atrium are hidden away, strangely. There was plenty of positives though, including the great promenade deck, the stadium area, and the laid-back nature of the bars and restaurants. The Virtuosa is a much bigger ship, but it can host around twice as many cruisers on the sailing, so that really is noticed when you're on board. The bulk of the ship is always crowded, and if you want to just simply sit and relax, then you either need to hide away in the buffet, or you'll need to buy a drink in a very crowded bar. Thankfully, we were on a short cruise on the ship, but on a longer one, it would be a frustrating experience, as there was just simply nowhere to just sit, relax, grab a drink, without being surrounded by those drinking, dancing and letting loose on holiday, as they should be doing. The staff on the Virtuosa were much friendlier, and also much less stressed, and things were much more organised, aside from a chaotic and sadly close to dangerous muster drill. The layout of the ship has a much better flow about it, but it is very lacking in an outside promenade deck. In fairness, the ships themselves have a very similar onboard experience overall, with both keeping things relaxed. But that just makes the big problems with the organisation and the tired overworked staff just such a big issue with the Prima that we have to give this one to the MSC Virtuosa. This is another area where the two have plenty of similarities, in that they have lots on offer included in their base fare, but also plenty of add-ons. Both ships have several free-to-eat places, with basic drinks included in eating areas, and both have theatres with a range of acts. Both have plenty of swimming pools, kids splash zones and flumes for those wanting to take advantage of any good weather. It should also be said that both are missing an included cafe. Whilst the Virtuoso does have things like an inside promenade, complete with a light show, the Prima does have plenty more included in the base price. The Indulge Food Hall is a great area that could easily be a pay restaurant on other ships, and the promenade deck is one of the best outdoor spaces that we have come across on a ship. It includes everything from a beach style club to a sculpture walk, and from a quiet seating area to a glass walkway. Another area the Prima excels at is the top deck included activities, with the stadium games area and the included mini golf course a big advantage over the Virtuosa. Both had plenty of entertainment around the ship, even if it was badly organised on the Prima, but for us, the promenade and top deck extras really give the Prima the edge in this one. Both ships have all that you would expect from a mainstream cruise ship, especially a modern one with big theatres, ample venues around the ship offering live music and plenty of activities both throughout the day and into the night. In the theatres, both also had acts such as comedians as well as in-house productions, whilst the Prima did have a West End or Broadway if you prefer style show. We love to see theatre productions, and whilst the Donna Summer show wasn't really to our taste, it is great to see a ship offering such a production. One thing we didn't like on the Prima was the lack of advance warning for shows, as you weren't told what was taking place until the day before, and to be honest, things got really repetitive very quickly, with the same acts doing multiple shows throughout the journey. That made it difficult to organise any shows or acts you wanted to watch around dining reservations, and also conflicting activities. Things were better on the Virtuosa, but one annoying thing was that you had to book into shows, even if they were paid extra ones, once you got on board. Why you couldn't do that on the app or the website before boarding just makes no sense to me. Having a proper stage in the atrium was a big plus for the Virtuosa over NCL's hidden in the corner setup, but there was more variety in terms of the acts playing there, with MSC. The pay extra Cirque du Soleil style show in the Virtuosa was well worth the discounted price that we paid, and the incredible ceiling of the promenade street makes you forget that you are on a ship. This is one of the closest categories, as both ships offer a mix of good and bad when it comes to entertainment, but thanks to the better organisation and more variety, we are going to give the win in this category to MSC Virtuosa. We were in an inside cabin on board both ships, so this is quite an easy one to compare and contrast. Both cabins were of a decent size, especially for an internal cabin, both had comfy beds, and both had decent sized bathrooms. Both staterooms also had decent sized televisions, underbed storage, perfect for our luggage, whilst the location was much better on the Prima, but that was down to us picking the sail away rate on the Virtuosa. We didn't run into any issues when it came to things like USB ports and plug sockets, so with things so close, it really does come down to a few minor things. The biggest difference for us was the lack of storage space in the Virtuosa cabin, especially the wardrobes. As we only did a mini cruise, it wasn't too much of an issue, but if you were on a 7-night or especially a 14-night cruise, you would be struggling and having to juggle what was hung up and what wasn't. With that in mind, we are going to give the narrow victory for accommodation to the Norwegian Prima. As two large, modern cruise ships, it will come as no surprise that both ships had numerous bars and restaurants to make sure that you never went hungry or thirsty whilst on holiday. From a personal point of view, the lemonade on offer from the self-service machines in the buffet and Indulge Food Hall on board the Prima is always a big plus, but both offered a range of included drinks in self-service areas. The main dining rooms on board both of the ships each offer decent pub standard meals, and whilst that does put them behind other lines we sail with, you really can't complain. One of the biggest differences for us was the woeful buffet on the Prima that was so small it never had enough seating, and the food options were the most limited and basic we have ever experienced on a cruise ship, including when sailing on other NCL ships. The Virtuosa's buffet on the other hand was very spacious, had plenty of options and was well laid out, plus it had an outdoor seating area with a view, unlike on the Prima. A big win for the Prima was the food on offer in the Indulge Food Hall, which also had an outdoor seating area with a bar. But sadly, after the first couple of days, people soon cottoned on that it was the place to be, and with seating limited, it became a battle to get in there. We didn't eat in any specialty restaurants on the Virtuosa, but we did on the Prima. And whilst having a good experience in the bistro, we had an incredibly poor one in Los Lobos. Due to the incredibly poor buffet on the Prima, which caused plenty of knock-on effects as so many regular users of it headed to other parts of the ship to eat, and with the issues we had in Los Lobos, we are going to give this one to the MSC Virtuosa, but just. So overall, you have to say the best ship is the MSC Virtuosa, as it proved to be the best in 3 categories, whilst the Prima was only best in 2. But with the margins being so incredibly tight in a number of those, it will really come down to your sailing as to which is best. A lot of the problems on the Prima came down to the staff, in terms of how stressed, overworked, tired and unorganised they were. And that is completely the problem of the line. But it is something that is easy to change, and if they do, the ship could be improved dramatically. There are a lot of problems that cannot be changed, such as the layout issues you find throughout the ship, but the same can be said for the Virtuosa, where the lack of an outside promenade deck really is a shame. All in all, it really comes down to which has the best itinerary and the best value getaway, as to whether you would choose to sail on one over the other. But for the terms of this video, the answer to the question of which is best is the MSC Virtuosa. So all that remains to be said is thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed our comparison of the NCL Prima and the MSC Virtuosa, and see you next time.